All right, we're going to talk about equations today. We're going to give a brief introduction to equations. So, equation is something that has an equal sign. It's an expression with an equal sign on the end. And the big thing about equations is if you do the same thing to both sides, by both sides we mean both sides of that equal sign. There's a left part and a right part separated by the equal sign. And if you do the same things to both sides, it remains balanced. For example, if we have 3 plus 4 equals 7. Now, clearly it's balanced now, and if I were to take the whole thing and double it on both sides of the equal sign, it's going to remain balanced. And if I then divide both of those sides by 4.5, it's going to remain balanced. If I then take the square root of both sides of this, it is going to remain balanced. So I think that makes sense, that if you do the same things to both sides of an equal sign, it remains balanced. Okay, so to solve an equation, this means that we're going to find the value of the unknown quantity. Normally it's represented by a variable. We're going to find the value of the variable. That's what we mean when we're going to solve an equation. Now, an expression we would simplify, because in an expression we would end up with some unknowns, c plus 5. That might be an answer. But in an equation, we're going to have a definite answer, sometimes more than one answer. So, if we have to solve an equation, we're going to do SADMAP, which is the order of operations backwards. It's not just doing the order of operations backwards, but it's doing the opposite operation. Our ultimate goal of algebra is to get the variable by itself. So in this expression that I have here, in this equation, I have g plus 3 equals 7. Now, we all know that it's going to be 4, but let's try solving it by undoing operations in this easier problem so that when we get to some tougher ones, we have an idea of how to go about this. So I'm going to undo. It's like I already know the answer is 7, so I need to find out part of the question. What plus 3 equals 7? And so what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to get rid of this plus 3. And the way I get rid of a plus 3 is to... The way I get rid of a plus 3 is to subtract 3. And I'm going to do that on both sides of this equal sign. I'm going to subtract 3 on this side of the equal sign and on this side of the equal sign. So if I have some number g, and then I add 3 to it, and then I subtract 3 to it, well, I'm going to be left with g. Then I'm going to bring down my equal sign, because I need to have that barrier still, and then 7 minus 3 equals 4. So this is kind of a proof that g plus 3 equals 7 is the same thing as g equals 4. I did the same thing on both sides of that equal sign, so I know my equation is still balanced. All right, moving on. So the examples of solving. So the steps are going to be the same, regardless of whether or not there's fractions or integers, positives, negatives. So let's go through some of these. We're going to start with this one over here. So I have 2 times g equal to 4. Well, I know it's 2, but let's go through and solve this. I want to get rid of this times 2. And how do you get rid of a times 2? Well, you're going to divide by 2. And where are you going to do that? On both sides of the equal sign. So 2 divided by 2, that's going to cancel and be 1. 1 times g is g. Equals, bring down your equal sign, 4 divided by 2 is 2. So again, we've proved that 2g equals 4 is the same thing as g equals 2. And we proved that kind of because we did the same thing on both sides of the equal sign. Now over here we have negative 8 plus q equals 5. Well, I'm going to undo this negative 8. In fact, it's addition, so I can do plus a negative 8 equals 5. I can do that because of the commutative property. And I'm going to subtract a negative 8, and I'm going to do that on both sides of the equal sign. So if I have a plus a -8 and then a minus -8, that's going to cancel and be 0. 0 plus q is q. Bring down my equal sign. 5 take away -8 is going to be 13. And if we go back in and check in our original, if I were to put a 13 in here, -8 plus 13, what's that going to be? Well, it better be 5, and it is. So I know my answer is right. Hopefully that made sense going in and checking. All right, so why don't you try one on your own now? Give this a pause, try it. C divided by 5 equals 20. So how are you going to get rid of a divided by 5? And it's -20. All right, hopefully you have an answer down here. C divided by 5 equals -20. C divided by 5 equals -20. How are you going to get rid of a divided by 5? Well, I'm going to times by 5, and I'm going to do that on both sides of the equal sign. So C divided by 5 and then times 5 is going to leave me with C. Bring down your equal sign. And -20 times 5 is going to be -100. Let's see, does -100 divided by 5 equal -20? It sure does, so I know my answer is right. I know -100 is the answer there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you should be finished there. You should be able to answer the questions on the form now. Let's see it.